Hi, I'm Heather from booktubes, and today is favorite type of side characters. This is the third and final installment in the series where I talk about my favorite types of characters. Pretty self-explanatory. Again, this series was kind of inspired by Jashana at Jashana. She did videos that put this in my mind. So there are 3 videos. I'll put the previous 2 in the description if you haven't gotten a chance to watch them. But this is side characters. I've had a lot of fun doing this because I get to kind of gush about different character types in books and what I like and what I love, and some underrated things that I'm just like, nobody talks about this, but like I love this so much. This is 10 types of side characters. The first one is supportive. I love a good support system for our main character, our love interest, our side characters. I love supportive characters. I love when the family is supportive, when the friends are supportive, the teachers, like you name it. I like people who actually add to our main character's life, who are helpful to them, who care about them, who understand them to varying degrees, as we all do. I love when an author gives us this, and I think it is harder to write, and I think that's part of why we don't get it as frequently, right? If you're going to write supportive side characters, you have to, one, write the side characters, make them feel real, and do these interactions that give us this foundation of support. It's much easier to write an absentee parent or a neglectful parent who's not on page. You're able to write about the feelings of that person without really having to do any work on the actual character themselves. And when that character is introduced on page, you're able to have them kind of one note, very cold or abusive or emotionally unavailable, right? They don't have to show any more realness than that, because that is our character's entire relationship with this other character. I think it's overdone in romance. I think it's overdone in romance. The cold, closed off hero who has no one in his life other than maybe a kind of questionable best friend. And or the main character who is an outsider, who has never had the type of love and is going to become a whole human being when they meet the hero. So I think that is drastically overdone. Obviously, people can be isolated, but I think that the amount that we get it in romance books is not always, it's questionable. And sometimes I think it's authors being lazy and not wanting to put the work into the side characters. This is something I really love in a lot of Black romance. It's not just that you have this couple loving each other, but often, the majority of the time, I would argue, you have a strong support system with characters who feel like real people alongside your main characters, and they are there and they are active and they are participating in the community, in each other's lives. They interact, and that's one of my favorite things about Black romance in general. The next one is platonic friends. I love platonic friends of the same gender, of the opposite gender. I love platonic friends for our main character, for our love interests. I love platonic friends where you have a friend group, and especially I feel like when it's not just 3 guys or it's not just 3 girls. I love when those friends would never make a move on each other. I love when they would never make a move on someone else's significant other. I love when they are making good decisions and it's not like you have to be worried about them, I guess. I really like when you have a platonic friend group where that is the truth of it. It's not someone biding their time until they can actually be with the main character or be with the love interest. They're just friends. That's all they will ever be, regardless of who else comes into their life. And they are good friends. They are good friends. I feel like a lot of times we use friends, either obviously friends to lovers, you're going to have this trope, but also even if it's not friends to lovers, a lot of times you have the conflict of a friend being like, I thought we were going to be together. And it's like, no, I only ever saw you as a friend. And that being this whole ordeal, whether it's for the main character or for the love interest, whichever one, a lot of times, you know, you have the catty woman who is friends with a hero, but is actually just trying to be the wife in the future, right? Or you have that guy best friend who has always been nothing but great, maybe a little jealous, a little possessive at times, but nothing but great. And then you have the hero come into the picture and all of a sudden he's like toxically abusive to the main character, right? I don't like that. I like when we skip over that and we have friends be friends and be good friends. Number 3, well-written children. This is such a skill that when it is accomplished, when that child is a delightful whole character that is age appropriate and makes sense for the age that you put this character in, and is interacting with the main character and the hero who has a presence on page, who feels real, I love it. I love it. And I love it so much, I think, particularly because we just don't get it that often, because a lot of times, especially as someone with children who's around children a lot, who has been around a lot of different stages a lot, so many people just get it drastically wrong. Their 4-year-old acts like an 11-year-old and their 10-year-old acts like a 2-year-old or a 14-year-old. And there's a lot of developmentally appropriate ways of communication and thought processes and just interactions with people, and you have to know what age you're writing, and people don't get it right the majority of the time. I would argue the majority of the time they don't get it right, and I love when they do. I love when they do. Number 4 is loving families. These families can be flawed, they can have problems, they can have arguments on page. But throughout the book, I want our main character and or our love interest, I want them to know that they are loved, for that to be present on the page, for their families to be a foundation that they can rely on, that is part of who they are. And again, obviously not everybody has loving families, so it's not that every single book has to have this, but I feel like it's rare that we get the main character and the love interest to both have good families. A lot of times you have the support system of one being given to the other because they've never had this support system, regardless of which way it goes. But I really, really love when both do. I love when we can have families who love each other, regardless of all of the issues that life throws at us, regardless of the difference in personalities or the difference in goals or what you think that they should be doing with their life. I, again, think it is a skill, it is a writing strength to be able to give us a family who cares about each other and you feel like they do. Number 5, someone we have a negative view of and realize we were mistaken, or it's complicated, or they are, you know, having progress in their character arc throughout the book. Because we are introduced to characters through the eyes of our main character or through the eyes of our love interest. And so a lot of times we can have some perceptions of them that might not be accurate to the character. And sometimes you see this when they have their own book, or maybe they never have their own point of view, but your character grows to see them in a different light. I really enjoy when they're able to flip that on its head in a believable way. First you had me not really liking this person, but now we have this interaction, or we have this bigger context or understanding, and I would die for them. I would die for them. They're my babies, right? What I don't like with this is if you use that shift in knowing this other character to suddenly put the characters that you fell in love with in the first place in a bad light. I don't like that. I despise it, actually. When you have these characters that you have loved for multiple books, now we get this other person's point of view, and all of a sudden that character is trash, and how could they ever treat them this way? I really, really dislike that. I really, really dislike that. So it cannot come at that cost. It must be, we still love our original characters, and also we're growing close to these characters. Number 6 is someone who is willing to tell the main character that they are wrong. they have the relationship foundation to do this without the main character getting defensive and breaking off the relationship. This is important that the relationship continues to thrive after this point for me, because we as humans are defensive. If you tell me that I'm wrong, I'm probably going to react negatively, and that's something that I, as an adult, really have to work at, right? Because we want people to think that we're right all the time. We want them to think that we're the best thing that's ever happened, that we make no mistakes, that our opinion is always correct, that our interpretation of the situation is always correct, that we are always in the right. And that's something that we all want and something that we will all fall short of. So I think for me, I've always kind of believed that if someone is telling you that you're wrong about something and you have a relationship with them, they are trusting you enough to bring this up to you and believe that it's not going to ruin the relationship. Or if it does ruin the relationship, they believed in it so much that they felt like it was worth the risk to let you know because they loved you. And I think that this is something that we see on the internet a lot, right? Because the more eyes that you have on you, the more you're going to have people misunderstanding you, misinterpreting you, and or just disagreeing with you / actively disliking you and purposely taking everything that you say the wrong way. And you can sometimes see authors and creators getting into hot water because they react very defensively to being told that they were wrong. And I think part of that, a small part of it, because again, defensiveness is natural. We all have to kind of curb it. I think a small part of that is that you don't have any relationship with the people that are calling you out. And so it feels more like an attack rather than advice from somebody who loves you. That you know that even if you all don't see eye to eye on this, they still love you. And it was the fact that they loved you that they bothered to tell you in the first place. Because so much of it is from strangers and or barely acquaintances. I think that contributes to a lot of times the bad reaction that you get from people being called out for stuff. In a book, if you have someone telling the main character that they're wrong and the main character is actually wrong, or even if they're not, again, it takes skill to write that character in a way that we, the reader, believe in this relationship and we don't automatically dislike the person who's telling our character that they're wrong. I think that is part of it too. Your side character needs to be able to have conflict with your main character and we, the reader, don't turn on them. Number 7 is a walking disaster. There's just something fun about it. Obviously, sometimes it can be the comedic relief in the story, or it can be someone who is causing a lot of issues that our main character and our love interest are having to troubleshoot. But I especially like this when it's not toxic or not malicious or not someone who is using the main character just to fix all of their problems without caring about the main character. A walking disaster needs to have good intentions a lot of times, I think is the key maybe. And yeah, they create situations that are comical. Number 8, the cliched gruff instructor. This obviously in fantasy settings can be like the captain of the guard that's training them to fight, or in contemporary settings it can be a professor or a mentor or someone who is gruff but caring. They care. They are not abusive. They are not toxic. Maybe their praise is not frequent, but the way that they are interacting with their student, their pupil, their protege, they are grumpy, but they are not evil. They are not abusive, and they care about that person. It's a classic. It's a classic for a reason. When it's done well, it's done so well. And it's just so satisfying when you get that really good version of it. Number 9, a talking animal or non-human sidekick. I feel like a lot of times for this, you have to be able to write funny characters, or you have to be able to write a character who is not intentionally funny, but because of the difference between the way our minds work, you can be dead serious and it can still be comedic to the reader. And the main character might find it funny too, but they have to not be laughing in a mean way at that side character. They have to, care about them and consider their feelings and be kind about it. But at the same time, the difference between us is such that the writing one, I think it can allow for a lot of really interesting exploration of, I've set up this character that this is how they operate, and we can kind of lean into that niche, that gimmick almost, without it being a two-dimensional character, because we have this context for why they're different and why all of our interactions with them can go this one way, if that makes sense. Again, when it's done well, like, those can be your favorite characters, whether it's a dragon or whether it's a kitten or whether it is a fantasy race, what have you. A lot of times they're standouts in the book when they're done really well. And lastly, number 10, a potential love interest who does not get chosen. They don't end up being a love interest, but they maintain a good relationship with the main character. And or alternatively, a great ex or a great co-parent ex. I love when someone can be denied, or they lose them, or they've moved on, they're an ex, they tried to date you and it didn't really work out. Maybe you went on one date with them and then you ended up with the hero instead. But instead of being toxic and feeling like they have a right to you and feeling like if they can't have you, then it's okay for them to make your life miserable, they maintain a good relationship. They get along with your current partner. They put the well-being of their child ahead of their issues with you. They show maturity. Maybe they go to therapy. Yeah, just that emotional maturity, it's emotional intelligence to be able to get along with you even though you're not their partner. Again, in romance books, I don't feel like we get this enough. And when we do get it and it's done really well, and you can like that character and you can be happy for them in their life and they can be happy for you in your life, oh, it's so good. It's so good. I love when our main character becomes friends with the ex, or at least gets along, or can be in the same room and there's no issue because they don't have a right to that person and they never did. And the fact that they loved and lost doesn't have to mean that they have to be toxic to anyone that interacts with them. I just really, really like it, again, especially for romance books, when we can have these characters and it can be set up as a potential conflict, and it's not. It's not. We're healthy, we're mature, we can treat each other with respect and politeness and a genuine well-wishing for your well-being, and that be believable on page. So that's it. Those are my favorite type of side characters that I was able to think of for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun doing the main characters and the love interest and the side characters. And if you have recommendations for me that, lean into any of these things, I'd definitely like to hear them in the comments. Again, thank you so much for watching. This is the last video for this series, so I gotta come up with another series soon. Let me know if you have any suggestions. Bye!